Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Warrior podcast. I'm Ebony, and I'm here as your wellness facilitator. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in managing Hashimoto's disease, and I really hope that it'll help you on your personal journey. Keep in mind, however, this does not substitute as medical advice. It is only for your information and motivational purposes only. Now, let's get started. Well, hello there. Last week we were talking about how do we quiet our minds and process through the emotions that we are experiencing as it relates to just life, because we've all got something going on. We all have trials and tribulations, and I want to share with you some ways that I have been working on being more in touch with how I feel so that I can be a better friend, and how I can actually communicate my needs to those around me so that we can have better relationships. And today I want to talk to you about making changes about those things. So if you did not listen to last week's episode, highly recommend that you do it, because that was the first part of your exercise to identify what's going on with you emotionally. And today I want to talk about, can you do anything about those things that you've identified? Meaning, if you are stressed out about having to do everything in the house, can you either talk to your family about saying, hey, I really need more help? And I actually want to go off on a tangent with that. Stop trying to be a superhuman. You are not. And I say that as nicely and as respectfully as possible. We have this bad habit of thinking that we have to do it all because we can't depend on anyone. But in reality, we actually haven't asked for the help. And we just assume that everyone is busy and that everyone has things going on, when if we would just open our mouths and say, hey, can you help me take out the trash? Or can you lift this book? Or can you help me insert whatever the thing is? And we suffer when we don't have to. This has been something that I am really and truly learning to do and to share with my team that I supervise and to share with other people. And my mother used to say this all the time: closed mouths don't get fed. And of course, I'm like, ha ha ha, that's so funny. But it actually is true. And even I had a friend when I went to a food truck and they only had cash at the time. They were only accepting cash. And I was like, oh my gosh, there are no ATM machines around here. How am I going to get that? And I mentioned that to them and they were like, well, do you need cash? And I started going through, well, the coffee shop might have it, but I don't remember seeing it. Or, you know what? I'm just not going to get it. I'm not going to do it. And they simply reiterated, do you need cash? And I was so busy trying to problem solve on my own when the solution was literally right there in front of me. And I had to stop myself and say, Ebony, they're asking you if you need help, and you're giving all of the reasons and processes that you need to walk through in order to solve the problem on your own, when your solution is right there in front of you. And I literally said yes. And I can easily Venmo you the money back. But in that case, they were like, no, you've bought me food plenty of times. This is no problem. And when I got to the truck, they had resolved their issue and they actually could take my card, and I gave them their money back and they were like, okay, it's here if you need it again. But I had worked myself up so much when all I had to do was stop for a second and pause and really process what they were asking me. So I really want to encourage you, when you're going through all of those moments and times where you're trying to think of all the ways to solve problems, stop yourself and really ask yourself, has someone asked me to be there for me and I was too busy in my own way to accept the help? Because chances are you're in your own way. I know I have been. So I want you to become more aware of that. And sometimes when you actually recognize that people have been reaching out to you to help you for a long time and you have been denying help, it can be very eye-opening. And I will encourage you to not be hard on yourself. But the whole goal of this series is to help you start to recognize what's going on so that you can be more open to accepting that help. So with that being said, when you've written down those things and when you've processed if you need help or what's going on, what can you do about those things? Make a list. What are the items that you can change and that you have control over? And what are the things that you don't have control over? And when you look at that, how have you been coping with these things? Are you turning to worrying about the situation, especially the things that you can't control? Are you just worrying about them just to worry? Or is there a solution to those things? Let's say you need to get, you didn't get paid, your paycheck got messed up and your rent is due. Can you call your rent office and say, hey, my paycheck got messed up. This is what I can pay, but I'll get the rest to you next week. And they're open to that because there's a lot of apartment complexes out here that is not the case. I understand that. I recognize that. Or is there a situation where something broke and you're like, well, there's nothing I can do about that. I just have to wait for the replacement or I have to order a new one. But in that moment, you spent so much time worrying about the fact that you broke a vase and you beat yourself down for that thing when it's not really much you can do about it. Or if a package was supposed to come and it's delayed because we had a winter weather storm. It may or may not snow, but what good is worrying about that package coming going to do for you besides stress you out even more? And some of these examples may not apply to you. You know what your I can't control this is that you may or may not worry about. It's not up to me to judge that. It's not up to me to determine what that is. Only you know what that is. But if there are things that you do have the ability to control, what are you going to do about it? Like I said, can you have someone help you? Or if these are things that have come upon you because you took on too much, remember you were trying to be the helper or solve the problem, and you took it upon yourself to try to resolve something, can you set more boundaries? Because a lot of times we teach people how to treat us. So if you're constantly volunteering to do something, knowing that you don't have the capacity to do it, people are going to look to you to take on the task or the project or the thing. And it's not that you're not happy to do it, but because you set that expectation, people will literally just look to you and wait for you to open your mouth. And I do this with my team all the time because I have a very giving team, and I politely remind them every time we meet, sit on your hands. Before you open your mouth to volunteer for something, sit on your hands for 5 minutes. And to you, that might sound absolutely crazy. And it's also metaphor. It's a metaphor. And sometimes I personally do sit on my hands because I'm just like, I shouldn't be volunteering for this. I shouldn't be volunteering for this. Ebony, stop talking. Close your mouth. Or get a glass of water before your meeting. And when you feel like you're going to say, I'll do it, take a sip of water. And if by the end of that conversation, you've drank all of the water that was in the cup, that is a very easy indicator that you take on too much. Or in the case of sitting on your hands, if after that 5 minutes is up and your hands are tired, or you felt yourself shifting so much in the seat, you're taking on too much. And those are just two visuals or practical examples of how to try to get yourself to calm down before you're so quick to volunteer for something. Or in meetings, I often turn my camera off. Not because I don't want to be present. I mean, let's face it, we're all tired of Zoom meetings. Let's just be honest. But I purposely turn my camera off in a lot of meetings so that I can give my body the ability to react to things without someone trying to call me out or say, hey, Ebony, I can see you didn't like that. No, I really don't want your opinion on if I did or didn't like something. I just want to exist in this moment so that I can process through how I'm feeling. So my question for you is, what can you do about the things that you've identified that are pain points for you, or things that you know you need to give up or stop doing? I have no recommendations for you. I'm not judging you. We all have the things that we struggle with. What I struggle with may not be something that you struggle with, and vice versa. But again, the goal is to become more aware of what those things are so that we can be better to ourselves. And even with that, how do you bring more joy to yourself? Because as I mentioned before, we're all feeling it. We're all burned out. We're all tired. We're all sluggish. And when you add on a thyroid disease with that, it's just like, no, I don't want to adult today, or maybe for a week, a month, a year, or not ever. And it's draining, and you already don't have a lot of energy in the first place in many cases. So how do you protect yourself? How do you do little things that bring you joy, even if it's reading a book or coloring or going outside for a walk? Because when you start to identify these things, you can feel really heavy. So you want to have a balance to be able to say, all right, I know that all these things are happening and this ish is very depressing. So how do I also take care of myself in the process? And this is why I have sought the help of a counselor, because I have had to undo a lot of my childhood trauma and stress, and it's been challenging. And there are days where I literally crawl up in a ball in my bed, cry, and go to sleep. I'm very proud of that, because for a long time I wouldn't allow myself to cry or feel anything. And the fact that I have become a lot more sensitive and aware of what my needs are, and the fact that I allow myself to cry or do anything, is a feat. And I wear that with honor, and I'm not ashamed of it. So I want to challenge you to think through that. When you've identified the things that are attached to those emotions that you have, when you write them down, take the next step and say, now that I've identified these things, what things are in my control in one column and what things are out of my control in another. And then with the things that you can control, what can you do about it? And how can you bring more awareness to how you got in that situation in the first place? Is it because you take on too much and you need to set more boundaries? Or are they just things that just happen? For the things that you can't control, can you make a small change or approach it in such a way that you'll be able to get what you need that will bring you less stress? So those are really, really practical ways that I have been working on becoming more aware of who I am and what I need, and how to actually be there for someone else. Because you can also show this list to a friend and say, these are the things that have been going on. This is what's happening for me. And this is how I need you to be there for me. It's the same thing as having an accountability partner that I talked about in a former podcast episode. So I will leave you with that. and be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care. Okay, thyroid warriors, get out there and take things one step at a time. Remember, reflect on your triumphs, know that you are doing your best, and do what you need to do in order to be well. I would absolutely love it if you subscribe to this podcast and share this episode with a friend. And don't forget, leave me a review. I read those and try very hard to improve the show based upon your feedback. So I'd love to hear from you. And with that, be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care.